First, I would like to thank everybody that's here in our church and everybody that's on YouTube or wherever you're listening. Thank you for joining our Wednesday night Bible study here at Redemption Life Center. Our Wednesday night services start at 7:30, and our Sunday worship services start at 10:30 on Sundays, followed by a sermon. And we are located at 28906 East Admiral Place in Catoosa, Oklahoma. If you wish to team up with us and support our ministry, or if you would like copies of any of our messages, you can write to us at Redemption Life Center, P.O. Box 1304, Catoosa, Oklahoma 74015. And if we're going to have a Bible study, we need to use our Bible. And guess what I left in my seat? My Bible. Here I thought I was well prepared today. Okay, well, we've been studying in Proverbs, and we're almost to the end. We're last few chapters of Proverbs is where we're at right now, and the one we're going to do today is Proverbs Chapter 27. And what we've been doing is we have Dave read in the King James Version. We have Josie reading the verses in her Living Word Bible, and I'm reading out of the Amplified Bible. There's lots of versions out there, but those are the ones we have chosen for our Bible study. And so we're going to start off, sometimes we do it verse by verse, sometimes we do several verses, and sometimes we do a whole lot of verses and then discuss them. Today we're going to do, we're going to study a little bit at a time, little by little, and line upon line, precept upon precept, that type of thing. Proverbs is got lots of stuff in every chapter. It's all about learning wisdom. Knowledge can be learned at a college, but learning God's wisdom goes deeper than that. Because there are people that can learn things out of books, and that's a good thing. But God can give you wisdom beyond what's in the books. And I just think it's awesome because God created everything. So before there was ever a school, he taught people, and they repeated what they learned to others, and eventually there ended up being schools, I guess. Anyhow, the main thing is wisdom is learning how to think the way God thinks, true wisdom. And when you think and act upon the way God thinks, you have better results than you would think in any other way. And so Proverbs tries to help us to understand God's way of thinking about things. He used Solomon for most of it, but to write King Solomon, but there was other people that contributed to the Proverbs. So we can learn a lot from it. There is a lot of repetition. There are concepts that God, through Proverbs, says over and over again, but he gives different illustrations for them. And I think he does that because each of us are at different levels of understanding, and God likes to meet us where we're at. And so it's put several different ways so that we can increase in our understanding. Because how can you do something to please somebody, in this case God, if you don't understand what pleases him? And so, just like we understand hot a little bit better when we have felt cold, and we understand cold a little bit better when we feel something hot, he has a lot of positive and negative comparisons in Proverbs to help us to have a better understanding of his way of thinking. So let's start out with chapter 27, verse 1, and we're just going to zero in on this one verse for the moment. Dave, will you start us off, please?
Boast not of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth.
Okay, Josie?
Don't brag about your plans for tomorrow. Wait and see what happens.
Do not boast of yourself and tomorrow, for you know not what a day may bring forth. Now, before we discuss that, I want to, and you don't have to flip over there, I can just go on ahead and read it from the Amplified. James chapter 4, verses 13 through 17 go right along with this. It says, "Come now, you who say, tomorrow or today, we will go into such and such city and spend a year there, and carry on our business and make money. Yet you do not know the least thing about what may happen tomorrow. What is the nature of your life? You are really but a wisp of vapor, a puff of smoke, a mist that is visible for a little while and then disappears into thin air. You ought instead to say, if the Lord is willing, we will live, and we will do this or that thing. But as it is, you boast falsely in your presumption and your self-conceit. All such boasting is wrong. So any person who knows what it is right to do but does not do it, to him it is sin." With that in mind on this first verse, do we have any comments? This was an eye-opener for me. I like to plan ahead. And ever since I left the house of my mom and my dad, I have had to learn lots of lessons and get lots of practice on being instant in, season, and out. Because I thought I was supposed to have a plan and God was supposed to go along with it. I didn't realize that he has a plan and I need to learn what it is and go along with his plan. I had it all backwards. And so I'm still at certain times having to learn that. But only God knows what's going to happen today and tomorrow. And when we say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, we should never leave God out. We should say, if God is for it, or if God is willing, and not boast about it like we're in control, because we're not in control. God is in control, and we need to realize that. And when we yield to his control, things go better for us. Any other comments? Okay, Dave, will you read verse 2, please?
Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips.
Okay, Josie?
Don't praise yourself. Let others do it.
Let another man praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. Now, why would God say that? Does anybody have any ideas?
Maybe others can see you better.
That's true. That is true. Sometimes we're too close to the forest, as they say, and we can't see the trees. Sometimes people observe something that we don't notice. Not only that, but have you ever noticed that when you brag on yourself, there's really not very much of a satisfaction type feeling that goes with it. And if someone that knows you brags on you, that means a little bit more to you. But what really means a lot is when a stranger who doesn't know you at all brags on something that they noticed about you. That is so much more honoring. So much more honoring. And it's a different type of boasting, is where you're just trying to make other people think better of you. But when someone else says something good about you, it's because usually when they say something good about you instead of something bad, it's because they really do believe that. And that is awesome. It's a whole different attitude, and it's wonderful. And it is a total opposite of somebody gossiping about you. All right. Let's read verses 3 and 4 together this time.
A stone is heavy, and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both.
Go on ahead and read 4, please.
Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy?
Okay, it's Josie.
A rebel's frustrations are heavier than sand and rocks. Jealousy is more dangerous and cruel than anger.
Okay. Stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but a fool's unreasoning wrath is heavier and more intolerable than both of them. And wrath is cruel, and anger is an overwhelming flood. But who is able to stand before jealousy? What kind of comments do we have on this? Well, it looks to me like God is telling us that jealousy is even worse than wrath or anger. And I think it's because it includes both of those, but it goes farther than that. It's also, usually it involves coveting something that you don't have. Now, I tend to jump to the thought of a girlfriend and a boyfriend when I think of jealousy. Maybe a guy likes a certain girl, but another guy likes that girl, and she likes the second guy better than the first guy, so he might be jealous and covet her and feel like it's not fair that the other guy gets her attention, and it might make him angry and full of wrath, and he might do some things that otherwise he wouldn't do because he's letting his emotions take over. And so anyway, jealousy looks to me like is considered worse than wrath and anger, and is more out of control than either or both. All right. Any other comments on those? Okay. Let's read five through 7.
Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. The full soul loatheth and honeycomb, but to the hungry and soul every bitter thing is sweet.
Okay. Josie?
Open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a friend are better than kisses from an enemy. Even honey seems tasteless to a man who is full, but if he is hungry, he'll eat anything.
Okay. Open rebuke is better than love that is hidden. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are lavish and deceitful. He who is satiated with sensual pleasures loathes and treads underfoot a honeycomb, but to the hungry soul every bitter thing is sweet. What do we understand from these verses? Well, maybe if I tell you what I get out of it, it'll spur you on to some other ideas. Let me give it a try. To me, it's kind of describing honesty. A person who really loves you, a person who is really your friend, won't say things and do things on purpose to hurt you. Now, some things they might say or do may hurt you just because it's truth that is hard for you to accept. But they don't do it to hurt you. They do it with the intention of helping you. Their attitude, their intentions are good. And, God is concerned about our attitudes and our perspectives. It's like honeycomb is sweet. But if you have a whole bunch of honeycomb, you might not appreciate it anymore. The children of Israel didn't appreciate the manna after a while. They appreciated it back when they were hungry. Then it didn't matter to them that it was the same thing every day that got rained down from heaven. But then after a while, they got tired of it. And they weren't hungry anymore, and they weren't appreciative of it anymore, and they didn't like it anymore, so they complained. All we have to eat is manna. We're tired of this manna. Well, that is... God wants us to be honest and have the right attitude. And he doesn't want us to be deceitful and say things to people just so that we can get them to do what we want them to do or whatever. I'm reminded of Judas's kiss. We normally think of a kiss as something you give to somebody that you care about a lot, that you love. And Judas was using it as a sign to the enemies that wanted to kill Jesus, that this is Jesus, to reveal who he was. But he made it look like he was in love with Jesus, and he gave Jesus a kiss. That was deceitful. And God despises deceit. He'd rather you say something that hurts somebody's feelings and be telling the truth than to deceive them by telling lies just to make them feel better. And that's what I get out of it. All right, let's read just verse 8 all by itself.
As a bird that wandereth from her nest, so is a man that wandereth from his place.
A man who strays from home is like a bird that wanders from its nest.
Like a bird that wanders from her nest, so is a man who strays from his home. Really, really, really think about those words. What kind of trouble does a man get into when they stray from their home? It could be a woman, too, for that matter, or a child. But a bird that strays from their nest, if they get very far from their nest, the enemy can come and destroy the nest. The enemy can come and destroy the young baby birds that are in the nest because it's not protected. There's just bad things could happen when they stray. A man who strays from his home, a home is where your heart is. It's not necessarily a fancy house. It might not even be a shack. It might be just a place where you abide at when you're with your loved ones and your family. A place that you work out of, a place that you take care of, regardless of whether it's an actual structure or not. Home is where the heart is. And when you stray from that, you're straying from where your heart is. You are opening yourself up for a lot of trouble. And I'll just leave it at that, and you can think it over.
Well, in your mind, you could stray from your home of God, a place that's in you, and it could be that too.
That's a good point. I like that. I like that, Josie. When we stray from God, we definitely get into a lot of trouble, don't we?
Yeah.
So you are correct. And our decisions have results. You make good decisions, God's way of thinking, and good things will follow. There might be some bad things that interrupt because of bad people out there, but all will work out good as long as we're doing things God's way.
Yeah, our home could be our ethics too.
Mm-hmm. It can be, yes.
Life.
Your standards, your ethics, yeah. Good point. Any other points? Is there anything else you can think of that a home could be?
Well, a home takes two parents. Reminds me of LBJ's Great Society in the 60s. He helped destroy the family unit. So there goes. So that's forcing the man out of the house.
You're right. When you don't have the right structure, the way God intended it, the way He created it, you're asking for big problems, and a whole bunch of them. Most certainly. Yes. That was good. I enjoy those comments. I don't like to hear just my comment. All right. Let's go for verses 9 and 10.
Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart, so doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. Thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not, neither go into the brother's house in the day of thy calamity. For better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off.
Okay, Josie?
Friendly suggestions are as pleasant as perfume. Never abandon a friend, either yours or your father's. Then you won't need to go to a distant relative for help in your time of need.
Okay. Oil and perfume rejoice the heart. So does the sweetness of a friend's counsel that comes from the heart. Your own friend and your father's friend, forsake them not. Neither go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near in spirit than a brother who is far off in heart. Comments? I'd like to hear more than just me.
Well, when it comes to family, they know everything about you. So it's better to be separate a lot of times. But when it's talking about the friends of the family, that's a different story. They don't really know you, but I'm sure they'll want to be helpful. I'm not sure if I'm making anything clear here, but I mean, there is a difference.
Well, mine's kind of similar to yours, Dave. Um, it's good to have good friends. But when you're having problems that require wisdom and truth, sometimes it's better, well, according to this, more than sometimes, it's better to go to somebody who's not so close to the situation because they might be prejudiced. Somebody that knows you might be for or against you, whereas the person that doesn't know you quite so well might have a clearer picture of what the truth of the situation is. Does that make sense? I'm kind of like Dave. I'm not sure exactly how to explain what I'm thinking in words. But when we get advice from a friend who really cares about us, or a relative that really cares about us, but it's truthful advice, and it's not meant to harm anybody. They're not taking sides. They're just explaining what would be wise in the situation. Then it's sweet and precious. But when we have problems and we go to like a neighbor who knows more about what's going on, maybe, we will get better advice from them than somebody who's blood kin to us that lives afar off and hasn't seen us for 2 years. That's another aspect in verse 10 that I see. So again, we're talking about heart advice. Advice that's meant to help somebody is blessed. It's welcome. It rejoices the heart, even if it's not what we thought we wanted to hear. This is kind of a silly illustration, but when I was younger and still in school, I had a friend who would tell me if my hair was out of place, if my hair got messed up, or if I was wearing makeup, which I don't wear anymore, but I did at one point, if I got some of it smeared, if I had food on my face that I thought I had wiped off with a napkin, if I had that on my face, she would tell me. And even though it was a little embarrassing on both sides of her side and my side, I appreciated that. I felt like, well, she's a true friend. She's not wanting me to go around looking like this in front of everybody all day long. She's trying to save me more embarrassment than what I have with her just telling me that. And that's the kind of friend we want. Somebody who will tell us like it is and not say, oh, I can't tell them that. That'll embarrass them. Oh, it embarrasses me more to go all day long looking like a mess because I don't have a mirror in front of my face than for a friend who pulls me off to one side and says, you got a little something right here on your chin that's not supposed to be there, And so it's kind of like that is the way I take it. And see, somebody who hasn't seen you for a while, they're not going to tell you about that because they're not right there with you unless they've got, a video going or something and see it on the video of you. They're not going to see you in person. But anyway, the electronics changes that a little bit. But bottom line is, when somebody cares about somebody else, they even care about them being embarrassed because something's not quite right. And they'll talk to them. They won't shout it on the rooftop to everybody in town that's willing to listen, but they'll pull you off to one side and say, I hate to bring this up, but, and then they'll tell you what is going on and then give you the opportunity to take care of it without making a big ordeal about it. So, anyway, that's what I get out of there.
Another good example of this verse 9 and verse 10 is an episode on the TV show called Home Improvement. And Tim the Toolman Taylor has his brother telling him how that he wants to leave his wife or get a divorce or something like this. And he goes to his brother, Tim the Toolman Taylor, starts telling him about it, and sure enough, Tim gets upset and starts bringing up his past, because every time he can't handle his job and can't handle the situations, he wants to quit, and he's quitting his family. And that's what Tim the Toolman Taylor is telling him, and his brother got upset. Man, I came here for some help, and here you're just putting me down. And so what he should have went to his brother's neighbor, Wilson, who has all the wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah, sometimes we can be saying things that are really how we think, and they are right, but somebody who's not so close to the situation might listen more to them and their wisdom. I don't know. But anyway, that was good. All right, are we ready to go on? I think we are. All right, let's go to verse 11.
My son, be wise and make my heart glad, that I may answer him that reproacheth me.
All right, Josie?
My son, how happy I will be if you turn out to be sensible. It will be a public honor to me.
Okay. My son, be wise and make my heart glad, that I may answer him who reproaches me as having failed in my parental duty. All right. What do we get out of that? Well, one of the things I get out of it is I've noticed almost everywhere I go, there's always somebody who blames the parents for not teaching their kids correctly for the wrongdoing that the kids are doing. But what they forget is just because you're taught something the right way doesn't mean you will choose as you get older to do it that way. And so here he's admonishing his son to be wise and make him glad by following the good advice that his parents have taught him, by practicing the good advice that his parents have taught him. And so that when someone tries to come against him or the parents, there will be nothing to stand on, because it won't be true. That's what I get out of it. I'm sure there's a lot more angles than just that. Okay. Well, if you think of something, we can always discuss it later. All right. Let's read verse 12.
A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished.
A sensible man watches for problems ahead and prepares to meet them. The simpleton never looks and suffers the consequences.
Mm-hmm. A prudent man sees the evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished with suffering. What do you get out of that, Josie?
No.
How about you, Dave? Well, it kind of speaks for himself. I mean, if you see something that's about to turn out to be a bad thing to happen, you don't need to put yourself in the middle of it all. But yet, the simple might not even understand that there's evil coming their way, and instead of avoiding that evil, they have to suffer the consequences. It's kind of like if you see a train coming down the track, that's not a good time to cross the tracks. But if you decide to cross it anyway, you might get hit by that train and suffer the consequences. And that's the only illustration that comes to mind at the moment. I'm sure there's many more. But we need to be aware of things, not to make ourselves afraid, but to make ourselves aware enough to where we can avoid a lot of problems just by doing the right thing, making the right choice. All right. How about verse 13?
Take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman.
The world's poorest credit risk is the man who agrees to pay a stranger's debts.
All right, the judge tells the creditor, take the garment of one who is security for a stranger, and hold him in pledge when he is security for foreigners. When we try to guarantee something in regards to somebody that is not proven themselves dependable to us, we are really living dangerously. It's dangerous enough to pledge to pay what somebody owes when they're an honest person and they're trying hard to do it right. But what is really bad is when you know the person has a bad reputation and you're still taking the pledge to be their security, and you're just asking for trouble, big time. That's what I get out of it. Any other comments on that? All right, verse 14.
He that blesseth his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him.
If you shout a pleasant greeting to a friend too early in the morning, he will count it as a curse.
Okay. The flatterer who loudly praises and glorifies his neighbor, rising early in the morning, it shall be counted as cursing him, for he will be suspected of sinister purposes. What does that mean to you guys?
I don't know what that means.
Well, number one, when you get real loud too early in the morning, you make people upset at the very beginning because you robbed them of some of their sleep. What a rude awakening. And so now they're in a bad mood. And now you're trying to say things loudly to make sure everybody hears. it makes people jump to the wrong conclusion. They're not trusting what you're saying. They are suspicious of your motives. And so you should never do that. You shouldn't do it. A flatterer has bad motives. They're wanting something for themselves. They want people to think good things of themselves, and so they toot their own horn, as they say. They make their boast about stuff, and they do it loudly because they don't just want the person they're focusing the words to hear. They want everybody around to hear too, and so they're quite annoying, actually, and they're like a squeaky door that needs oiled. It's very annoying, very annoying. They grab your attention away from whatever you're doing, be it sleeping or working or whatever, and make this loud noise that may or may not have anything to do with you, but it disturbed what you were doing. And no, that is not good. Not only will he be suspected of sinister purposes, but he probably does have an ulterior motive. He or she. All right. Let's read 15 and 16 together.
A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. Whosoever hideth her hideth the wind, and the ointment of his right hand, which bewrayeth itself.
Okay, Josie.
A constant dripping on a rainy day and a cranky woman are much alike. You can no more stop her complaints than you can stop the wind or hold on to anything with oil slick hands.
Okay. A continual dripping on a day of violent showers and a contentious woman are alike. Whoever attempts to restrain a contentious woman might as well try to stop the wind. His right hand encounters oil, and she slips through his fingers. You can't reason with somebody who has that behavior. You can't change him. Only God can change him. And when your hands have oil on them, whatever you're trying to hold on to slips away. Well, a contentious woman, she wants her way. It's her way or no way. It's her way or the highway. She will not be reasoned with. She will not even consider anybody else's ideas. And just like we can't normally, unless God gives us the power to, we cannot direct the weather. Now, man is trying to mess with the weather and the climate control stuff and all this stuff, but without God, they cannot succeed. And so, anyway, the main thing is, like if a tornado's tearing up your house, there's nothing you can do to untear it up. You can't reverse what the wind did. Well, this contentious woman, she's bound and set to do things her way, and nothing you say or do is going to change her thinking. And she's going to continue in the course she's on. All right. If you have a comment, go ahead, or let's start reading verse 17.
Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend.
A friendly discussion is as stimulating as the sparks that fly when iron strikes iron.
Iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend to show rage or worthy purpose. Explain that one. Well, I'm not real sure about it myself, but what comes to mind is our approach with one another. If we start our conversation in anger, we're going to spur that anger up in whoever we're talking to. If we, it's elsewhere in the Bible it says, a soft answer turneth away wrath. So if we instigate wrath, we will receive wrath. If we instigate calmness and common sense and being level-headed, we will encourage that to take place. That's how riots start. Somebody gets upset about something and they repeat it to somebody else and get them all upset. Everybody's upset. Next thing you know, you have everybody against everybody, and half of them don't even know what they're upset about, but they're going to follow the crowd and end up beating each other up and stomping all over each other like a stampede of wild beasts. So, but if when someone starts out angry, if someone answers that person calmly and gets them calmed down ahead of time, it can avoid that riot. It can deter that riot. It can calm them down to the point where they're reasonable and can be reasoned with. What kind of reason does it make, or what kind of sense does it make to be beaten on somebody when you don't even know what you're disagreeing about? That to me is just plumb ridiculous. Plumb ridiculous. Definitely a show of how emotions can control us without making any sense. All right, let's read verse 18.
Whoso keepeth the fig tree shall eat the fruit thereof, so he that waiteth on his master shall be honored.
A workman may eat from the orchard he tends. Anyone should be rewarded who protects another's interest.
Whoever tends the fig tree shall eat its fruit. So he who patiently and faithfully guards and heeds his master shall be honored. Kind of goes along with you reap what you sow. In my way of thinking, it's like when a plant is tended to properly, it produces properly, and it produces fruit that you can enjoy. So you reap the benefits. You reap the benefits. When you have somebody who is an employer or a boss over you, or whatever, when you do the job to the best of your ability that they expect you to do, you will reap benefits. Usually when you do the best job you can do and sometimes go way above and beyond that, that's when you get a raise, not necessarily when you go walking in the office and demand a raise. So a lot of the raises I got in life had to do with me not just doing my job, but doing the best I could do and sometimes going the extra mile. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that has experienced that. Now, there are some places where you get an automatic raise no matter what. But there's also places where they might give automatic raises, but they also give raises when you do above and beyond. And so we just need to do, it's advising us to do the best we can do, to be excellent in what we do. Remember, we're a king's kid, and we are to be the best that we can be for God. Not to get the raise or whatever, not to get the benefit, but because we're doing the best we can for God, He will make sure we get blessed with rewards. All right, let's read verse 19.
As in water, face answereth to face, so the heart of man to man.
A mirror reflects a man's face, but what he is really like is shown by the kind of friends he chooses.
Mm-hmm. As in water, face answers to face and reflects face, so the heart of man to man. What are your comments on that? I like the man in the mirror. Chuck had a whole sermon on that.
I believe it's talking about there's good people alike and there's bad people alike, but we should compare ourselves with the Word of God.
This is the mirror we should be looking in to see how we measure up. That's right. And we can think we can hide what's in our heart, but God sees it all. He knows what we've got in our heart. So we just need to get our heart in tune with Him, and we will be, people recognize if they're around you, even strangers can get a feel just by being near you as to whether you are a person that tries to do right by others. They can sense it. I don't say this to be bragging. I say this, not on me anyway, on the Holy Spirit. That I was busy one time I was working in the infant department at my job, and I was just minding my own business, trying to do the best I could at my job. And this person came up to me, had never been in our store before, had never met me before, and they said, "I perceive you're a Christian, and I need prayer. Will you pray for me?" It blew me out of the water, so to speak, because I wasn't doing anything but my job. I wasn't preaching a sermon. I wasn't trying to get anybody saved. I was just trying to do the best I could do at my job. But at the same time, they sensed something that made them say that, and I took it as an honor, and I stopped right then and prayed with them. But it's that kind of thing. It's like you can sit down in a cafeteria and maybe the person at the table next to you, they haven't said a word, but there's something about them, an aura, that makes you feel like that is a good person. That is a person who does their best to be their best for God and do things God's way. And you can sense it, and maybe you'll get to witness something they say or do before you both leave that restaurant that convinces you that your judgment of that aura around them was correct. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to put some verses together because this is taking just a little bit longer than I thought. But Let's read verses 20 and 21 this time.
Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. As the fining pot for silver and the furnace for gold, so is a man to his praise.
Ambition and death are alike in this, neither is ever satisfied. The purity of silver and gold can be tested in a crucible, but a man is tested by his reaction to men's praise.
Sheol, the place of the dead, Abaddon, the place of destruction, are never satisfied. So the lust of the eyes of man is never satisfied. As the refining pot for silver and the furnace for gold bring forth all the impurities of the metal, so let a man be in his trial of praise, ridding himself of all that is base or insecure. For a man is judged by what he praises and of what he boasts.
Well, to put these two verses together, I would have to say God is allowing people to get in positions of government and decision making because they want more control, they want more money, they want everything. And that's because without God, that's how that carnal mind works. And at the same time, God is allowing that to have his creation, whether you know God or not, to be tried, because he's wanting his creation to come forth as pure gold, to become who they really are. And without all this chaos and turmoil, we will just go along just like nothing's wrong.
Josie, you got any comments? No, I think that was pretty good. Okay, well, we are going to go on ahead and read verses 22 through 27 and finish up the chapter. And, start with 22 and go to the end of the chapter.
Though thou shouldest bray a fool in a mortar among wheat with a pestle, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. The riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation. The hay appeareth, and the tender grass showeth itself, and herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And thou shalt have goat's milk enough for thy food, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance of thy maidens.
You can't separate a rebel from his foolishness, though you crush him to powder. Riches can disappear fast, and a king's crown doesn't stay in his family forever. So watch your business interests closely. Know the state of your flocks and your herds. Then there will be lamb's wool enough for clothing, and goat's milk enough for food, for all your household after the hay is harvested, and the new crop appears, and the mountain grasses are gathered in.
Okay. Even though, like grain, you should pound a fool in a mortar with a pestle, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. Be diligent to know the state of your flocks, and look well to your herds. For riches are not forever. Does a crown endure to all generations? When the hay is gone, the tender grass shows itself, and the herbs of the mountain are gathered in. The lambs will be for your clothing, the goats will furnish you the price of a field, and there will be goat's milk enough for your food, for the food of your household, and for the maintenance of your maids. Comments. Basically kind of goes back to the first verse in a sense. We shouldn't boast about tomorrow. Our future is in God's hands, and if we do things His way, the things He's given us to use can be used to meet our needs, and like the goats and so forth. And we need to seek quality things, not just riches. Riches come and go. Power and authority, the crown, it doesn't stay with the same people all the time. It changes constantly. When the hay is gone, there's grass that comes up in its place, and herbs. And some of those herbs we think are weeds actually have value to them and are good for us. I always thought of dandelions as a weed, and I found out the dandelion greens before the dandelion blooms is very rich in good vitamins, and it can be cooked like spinach, or I guess you can eat it raw too, but the people I was with had cooked it.
You can have a dandelion tea too.
Yes. I mean, there's things that when our first choice is gone, we don't look to these other things until we are desperate sometimes. But God has provided a lot of good things for us if we will just make use of the things He's provided and seek His hand. So, do we have any other questions?